The 2026 audit is clear. Time has been compressed. Don't scroll down. We're going to reveal the logic why time seems to be passing too fast.
The prophecy predicted the speed.
The 2026 audit is live.
It's not the clock that changed, it's the technology. The clock hasn't changed.
Our technology is just doing things 1,000 times faster. The wait is over. Let's dive into the 2026 audit of the time compression Hadith. Welcome to the Cleophee podcast. Today we're sharing stories that will inspire and empower you. Let's get started.
I want you to take a second and just think about your day today.
Really think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Have you caught yourself looking at the clock, maybe it's around 3 in the afternoon, and wondering where the last 8 hours actually went?
Right, that feeling of just losing time entirely.
Exactly. Have you had that bizarre, almost collective sensation lately? The time is literally speeding up. Like you're checking your calendar and suddenly a month has just vanished.
And it's so common right now.
Right. You might brush it off. You might think, I don't know, well, I'm just getting older or I've just been really busy. But what if it's not just you? What if something fundamentally structurally is shifting in our reality?
It is a feeling that almost everyone seems to be reporting right now. We're living with this kind of chronic temporal vertigo.
Temporal vertigo. I like that. So basically, that's that feeling when you look at your phone on a Tuesday morning and suddenly it's Friday evening.
Yeah.
And your brain is just spinning, trying to figure out what happened in between.
Exactly. We feel like we are constantly running out of time, not because we have fewer hours on the clock, but because the sheer density of what happens within those hours has fundamentally changed.
The container is the same, but the contents are overflowing.
Right. The physical boundaries of our days haven't moved, but the contents of our days have exploded.
And that incredibly overwhelming feeling is the exact focus of today's deep dive. We are looking at a single, deeply compelling piece of source material today.
It's a fascinating piece.
It really is. It's a video created for the Cleophee podcast, and it's titled Chronos Compressed, the 2026 Audit of Temporal Acceleration. The entire mission of our deep dive today is to audit the source code behind this modern sensation of time acceleration.
To really break down the math of it.
Exactly. We're going to explore how an ancient 7th century prophecy has somehow morphed into the unavoidable, undeniable hardware reality of 2026.
It is such a brilliant analytical framing by the creators of this audit. They are essentially taking a theological text, stripping away the mysticism, and running it through a rigorous modern data analysis.
To see if the math holds up.
Right, to see if the math holds up in our current technological landscape. They are asking this really provocative question: can you prove a prophecy with data? Okay,
let's unpack this. The foundational text the source uses is from the 7th century. Specifically, it references Jami, at-Tirmidhi, Hadith 2332, and the author's note it's also recorded in Hadith 2210.
Which is an incredibly specific historical anchor.
It is. Now, just to be completely clear to you listening, we aren't here to debate the theology of this text or, endorse any specific religious worldview from either side of the aisle.
Of course not.
We are simply reporting impartially on the text that the source material uses as its baseline. And this specific prophecy states that the hour, essentially the end of an era or the end of times, will not begin until time passes rapidly.
And the wording is very deliberate.
Extremely deliberate. It says a year will feel like a month will feel like a week, and a week will feel like a day.
And this is where the analysis makes its crucial pivot. It clarifies right away that this prophecy, when viewed through the lens of their 2026 audit, isn't about the Earth suddenly spinning faster on its axis.
Right, we aren't losing physics.
No, we haven't lost actual physical seconds in the day. The Earth's rotation around the sun remains a constant 365 days. Instead, the creators argue that this text is entirely about human perception.
Perception dictated by biology.
Exactly. It's about how our biological hardware, our ancient brains, processes the passage of time based on what we can accomplish within it.
They're talking about the total collapse of latency in human life.
What's fascinating here is how the source defines that latency collapse. In technological terms, latency is simply the delay before a transfer of data begins following an instruction.
It's the wait time.
It's the wait time. Historically, human life was built entirely around latency. You want to eat, you wait for the crop to grow, you want to talk to someone far away.
You wait for a guy on a horse.
Right, you wait for a human messenger to ride across the country. But the audit points out that with the integration of autonomous AI agents and 6G processing power, that wait time has entirely evaporated.
But hold on, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Didn't people complain about time speeding up during the Industrial Revolution? Or, I don't know, when the telegraph was invented?
They absolutely did.
I feel like every single generation thinks the modern world is suddenly moving too fast. Is this 2026 latency collapse actually mathematically different? Or are we just complaining about modern life again?
That is the exact right question to ask, and it's one the audit anticipates. Yes, the telegraph sped things up, but the telegraph still required a human to tap out Morse code.
True.
And another human to receive it, translate it, and physically run a piece of paper across town. There was still a physical, biological bottleneck.
There was still friction.
Exactly. The creators of this audit found that 2026 is mathematically unprecedented because we have removed the human bottleneck entirely.
Because of the 6G integration.
Because of 6G networks, which aren't just about faster movie downloads, but about 0-millisecond delay between global systems, combined with autonomous AI agents that act without our prompting. Because of this, human output per second has increased by over 1,000%.
1,000%. That metric is just staggering to wrap your head around.
It really is. Think about what that actually means for the person listening to this right now. You can accomplish a month's worth of traditional work, global communication, and complex logistics in a single day.
All from a phone.
Entirely from a piece of glass in your hand. Imagine an office worker, even just 30 years ago, trying to do what you do on your phone while you're waiting in line for coffee.
They couldn't?
They would have needed an entire department of assistants, a travel agent, a post office, and a research library to match what you do before breakfast.
It's mind-bending. I literally sighed out loud yesterday because a website took 3 seconds to load. 3 seconds. And my brain processed that as an agonizing, frustrating delay.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It is. We are so conditioned to instant results that any physical friction feels like a breakdown of reality.
Which perfectly illustrates why our biological clock is breaking. Our brains evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to pace themselves based on the physical limitations of the natural world.
Right. Physics dictated our brain chemistry.
Walking takes time. Writing by hand takes time. Seeking out information takes time. And crucially, our brains use those physical wait times to encode memories. That downtime is when the brain hits save on the hard drive.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
When you remove the friction of physical reality from the equation, you don't just speed up tasks, you eliminate the downtime required for memory formation.
So that's why the week vanishes.
Exactly. Days blur together because your brain never gets a pause to compartmentalize the events. You fundamentally alter the human experience of duration.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The audit doesn't just leave it at that 1,000% output metric. They actually calculate a specific mathematical ratio for how much time is compressed between that 7th century era and today.
The math is the best part of this analysis.
What exactly did their data reveal?
They established a 12.1 compression ratio, 12 to 1, and they proved this by auditing 4 specific sectors of human activity.
And they compare the past to the present.
They lay out the historical data points against our modern reality to show exactly how, mathematically, a year has been compressed into a month and a month into a week.
It is such a brilliant way to ground this abstract feeling we all have into hard numbers. So let's dive into these 4 sectors because the comparisons are genuinely startling when you look at the historical reality next to how we live today.
Let's start with the first data point the audit examines: communication. This is perhaps the most visceral, everyday example of latency collapse for the average person.
Right. To set the baseline, the creators look at the 7th century method of communication, what they call the source code era. If you wanted to send a message of importance, you were writing a handwritten letter.
A very physical process.
Very physical. You had to source the parchment, mix the ink, physically write the words, and then hand it off. And how did it get to its destination? By a courier on a camel or a horse.
Dependent on animal biology.
The audit notes that this process took weeks, sometimes months, depending on the terrain and the distance. Think about the psychology of that. You write a letter, you hand it to a guy on an animal, and then you just go back to your life.
You literally had to just keep farming or whatever you were doing.
Exactly. For weeks, your mind holds that open loop, but there's nothing you can do but wait.
The human brain had massive stretches of time to rest between the action of sending a message and the reaction of receiving a reply. That delay provided a natural rhythm to human relationships and commerce.
It was a built-in breather.
But the 2026 audit completely shatters that reality. They contrast the camel with today's 6G instant AI translation and global satellite bursts.
And the time that takes is it's milliseconds. It's instantaneous.
Milliseconds. The audit calculates the compression here as 1 month of historical waiting compressing down to 1 second of modern reality.
A month to a second.
And why this matters, why they highlight this specific shift, is the complete eradication of wait times in human connection. You aren't just sending a text message instantly to your neighbor.
It's way beyond that now.
With AI translation baked into the network, you are crossing complex language barriers globally in real time via satellite. You can negotiate a contract with someone in Tokyo while sitting in Denver without ever pausing to translate.
You hit send, and before you've even moved your thumb away from the screen, the reply is populating. The month of waiting has become a second of reality.
And this loops back to the biology of it all. Our biology hasn't evolved to process instantaneous global feedback loops. We are firing off thoughts, receiving responses, and making subsequent decisions at a speed that allows for zero cognitive downtime.
The downtime is totally gone.
There is no longer a camel crossing a desert to give your brain a break.
So if our daily conversations are stripping away that cognitive downtime, what happens when we apply that exact same zero latency reality to the way we learn? Which brings us perfectly to the second data point from the audit knowledge.
This one is particularly profound when you consider the entire history of human progress. For centuries, knowledge was scarce, and it was fiercely protected by geography.
In the source code era, how did you acquire new, high-level knowledge? The audit points out that it required traveling to find a specific scholar or a specific library in another city.
The friction of distance.
Again, we're talking about extreme physical friction. It took months of grueling travel just to access a single text or speak to someone who knew more than you did.
You couldn't just Google it.
No. You had to secure funding, pack supplies, risk the elements, risk bandits on the road, and spend a massive portion of your mortal life just physically moving toward a piece of information.
Which made the acquisition of knowledge a deliberate, deeply physical journey. It required profound commitment. If you spent 6 months walking to Damascus to read a manuscript, your brain is going to anchor that event in your memory forever.
It's a core life event.
The physical journey gave the knowledge immense psychological weight. Now, contrast that with the 2026 reality detailed in the audit. The creators compared those months of travel to the modern act of using an AI agent to query the entire compiled history of human data.
And the time it takes to do that today, 5 seconds. The audit maps this mathematical compression as 1 year of historical effort shrinking down to 5 seconds.
It's almost hard to comprehend.
1 year to 5 seconds.
It fundamentally shifts knowledge from a physical journey to an instant digital reflex. You no longer have to journey to the library.
The library comes to you.
The cumulative knowledge of the entire human species is summoned to your exact geolocation the very second a question crosses your mind. What the audit is subtly pointing out here is that the friction of learning is entirely gone.
Which sounds like a good thing, but has a dark side.
Right. When you can access everything instantly, your brain processes a year's worth of traditional research and discovery in the time it takes to blink.
But because there was no journey, your brain doesn't encode the learning as a major life event. It just blurs into the background noise of your Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly.
It's like we've downloaded an entire 7th century scholar's lifetime of work while we're making toast. Is it any wonder our perception of time feels like it's an absolute freefall?
Precisely. The brain isn't categorizing the knowledge, it's just surviving the flood of it.
So our brains are overwhelmed by instant communication, and we're downloading lifetimes of knowledge as a reflex. How does this map onto the physical world? Like the actual stuff we buy and sell to survive?
The economy.
Yes, which leads us right into data point 3, trade in markets.
The movement of goods. The absolute lifeblood of any civilization.
The audit takes us back to the caravans traveling the Silk Road. If you're trading goods in that 7th century era, you were looking at a journey of 6 months to a full year.
A massive undertaking.
You were loading up physical cargo, negotiating with local guides, and walking that cargo across continents. It's heavily romanticized in our history books, but it was essentially a grueling year-long battle against geography, weather, and time.
Geography completely dictated the pace of the global economy. A storm in the mountains meant your silk or spices arrived 3 months late.
You had no choice but to wait.
The market had to be patient because physics demanded it. But the 2026 audit reveals a totally different paradigm. They contrast the grueling Silk Road caravans with our current reality, autonomous drone delivery, and global digital markets that operate entirely in the cloud.
And all of that operates on the exact same day. The compression ratio the audit gives us here is 1 year compressed into 1 day. A year of physical labor, negotiation, and transport reduced to a 24-hour delivery window.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what the creators are illustrating is how the modern supply chain has entirely absorbed the concept of distance.
Distance is just a metric for the algorithm now.
Distance is effectively dead as a barrier to human trade. You click a button, an autonomous algorithm processes the global transaction in microseconds, a digital market adjusts the global pricing instantly based on that demand, and an autonomous drone or automated logistics hub drops the physical item at your door hours later.
The caravan is gone.
The year-long wait for the caravan has been totally obliterated.
It's incredible to think about. The economy moves at the speed of light. Again, we as humans are forced to try and synchronize our internal biological clocks with a market that never sleeps, never takes a day off, and never waits for the weather to clear.
And it sets up their final point perfectly. Because it's one thing to move a product across the globe in a day. It's another entirely to physically build the infrastructure that product sits inside.
Which brings us to the fourth and final data point in the Cleophee podcast's audit construction. Building the literal physical world around us.
Historically, one of the most time-intensive, labor-heavy endeavors a society could possibly undertake.
Exactly. The creators note that in the source code era, building a structure by hand with stone or brick took years, sometimes generations, if we're talking about massive cathedrals or monuments.
You'd have people working on buildings they knew they'd never see finished.
Right. But even basic functional infrastructure took a massive investment of chronological time. Every single stone had to be quarried by hand, carved by hand, carried by an animal, and placed by human muscle.
It was a hard limitation dictated by human biology and analog tools. You could only build as fast as a human could safely lift a stone.
Muscles need to rest.
But the 2026 audit era has completely rewritten the physics of construction. The creators highlight the modern integration of 3D concrete printing and AI-managed robotics.
And the time difference is just staggering. The audit states that the same amount of structural work now takes days, or at most a few weeks. The mathematical compression ratio here is 1 year of traditional human labor compressed into just 1 month.
What's vital to understand from the data here is that it's not just about humans building houses faster with better tools. It's about AI-managed robotics orchestrating the construction.
Taking the human out of the loop entirely.
The human isn't laying the brick faster. The human is entirely removed from the physical exertion of the process. The physical world is essentially being updated and rendered almost like computer software. We are literally printing our infrastructure.
It's like dragging and dropping a building into a city skyline.
That's a perfect way to visualize it and think about the psychological impact of that. When the physical landscape of your city can change in a matter of weeks rather than decades, your brain registers that rapid physical change as time itself moving at an accelerated speed.
The world is overwriting itself too fast.
Your mental map of the world is constantly outdated, which forces your brain into a state of perpetual catch-up.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the audit's 4 pillars. Communication going from a month to a single second. Knowledge going from a year of travel to 5 seconds of querying.
Trade going from a year to a single day.
Right. And construction going from a year of manual labor to a month of printing. The entire thesis of this video is built on this 12.1 compression ratio. What the creators of this audit are ultimately saying is that the 7th century source code, that ancient prophecy stating a year will feel like a month like a week, and a week like a day, is no longer just a mystical, abstract prediction.
It's real.
It has been completely mathematically realized through the technological leaps of 2026.
And that is exactly why you, the listener, should care deeply about this audit. We so often internalize this feeling of time acceleration as a personal failing.
We blame ourselves constantly.
We think, I'm just not managing my time well enough, or I'm too distracted, or I need a better scheduling app. But this source material provides profound psychological validation.
It's not your fault.
Feeling overwhelmed isn't a personal failure. It is the literal mathematical reality of living in an era where your output per second has increased by 1,000%. Your biology, your ancient, slowly evolved brain that expects latency and wait times to function properly, is desperately trying to process a compressed timeline. You are physically living inside the hardware reality of that prophecy.
It is so validating to hear it put that way. You aren't bad at time management. You're quite literally doing the work of 100 ancestors before your lunch break. It's no wonder you feel like the week disappeared. You lived a month's worth of logistical reality, emotional connection, and data processing in 5 days.
This raises an important question, one that builds directly on the friction between our biological hardware and this 2026 technological reality that the audit outlines so clearly.
Where do we go from here?
Right. If our biological perception of time has compressed so drastically because our output per second increased by 1,000%, what happens when latency drops all the way to absolute zero? As 6G evolves into whatever comes next, and as autonomous AI agents become completely frictionless and predictive, will human biology eventually adapt to this ultimate hardware reality? Or is the biological breaking point of the human mind exactly what that 7th century prophecy meant by the beginning of the hour?
Wow, that is a heavy, incredible thought to leave on. Are we evolving to keep up, or are we just accelerating 1,000% right toward a biological wall? That is definitely something to mull over the next time you feel a week vanish before your eyes. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the 2026 temporal audit. Do yourself a favor right now, take a deep breath, step away from your 6G connection for just a moment, and try to reclaim a few uncompressed high-latency seconds strictly for yourself. You've earned it.
Thanks for listening to us till the end. If you're impressed and want to revert to Islam, just recite the Shahada, the Islamic creed. The Shahada is the Islamic declaration of faith and is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It consists of 2 main parts. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that there is no God or deity of worship but Allah. And finally, Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of Allah. Congratulations! The Shahada is central to a Muslim's faith and identity. Please join our WhatsApp group to let us know. The link is in the video description. Ask me any question that you may have. I will see you in another episode. Hit like and subscribe and bell button for notification. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.